those who heard their infant supplications were deeply moved. The children's prayers and supplications had a powerful effect on the whole community.
Check.
The Moravians felt that the call to non-stop prayer was likened to the Old Testament typology of the fire in the temple, where in Leviticus 6:13 it says, quote, "Go out on the altar," end quote. Likewise, they said that, quote, "a congregation is a temple of the living God, wherein he has his altar and fire. The intercession of his saints should incessantly rise up to him," end quote. It is said that this prayer meeting continued unbroken for 100 years. Also, young people should note here that this prayer watch was started by a group of young, zealous believers. The average age of people in this community was about 30. Zinzendorf himself was only 27. If the revival would have stopped there, I would have been impressed enough. But as I kept reading and studying these people, I found that what happened next was even more extraordinary. Sadly, it's this next part that you never hear about in the typical accounts of the Moravians, and for good reason. Nothing about what happened next fits into our modern American idea of what we call normal church life. These missionaries ministered in some of the worst conditions you could imagine. Not long into the work, David Nitschmann returned to Herrnhut and later was made the first bishop of the renewed Moravian Brethren. In a few years, Leonard would also be called to return to Herrnhut to be involved in ministry in Europe until his death. The work in St. Thomas continued to grow rapidly as others came to feel the needs. Eventually, David Nitschmann would lead the mission community to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where he is now buried right there in God's Acre in Bethlehem. Lots of young people today talk about being a missionary. The requirements of being a missionary with these Moravians, however, was very impressive. The requirement to be one of these missionaries was nothing short of total surrender. In one interesting account, a young couple who wanted to be missionaries to St. Thomas were questioned about their desire to be missionaries. The wife was called before the conference, and the following questions were asked. This is what they asked this lady, standing there by herself without her husband. Quote, had she lived long enough for herself? Her answer, she had lived for herself long enough. Next question, had she lived long enough for the church? Answer, she did not know.